lately is I don't like the camera on my,
Recording again, because the minute I put that share on with that portion of the screen thing.
God, who's that good-looking Todd guy that came in?
Hey, there he is. Yeah, said he was going to be joining us from the beginning.
Oh my God, even better in person. You have him muted. He can't hear us. Or I can't hear him. He can hear us.
okay.
Okay. There we go. All right. So we're gonna, yeah, we got a couple of minutes here. So I'm just, we usually give everybody a chance to come sliding in. So
Okay, good.
we'll be ready to go, like around 4:30. We just give everybody, with technology and everything else, it takes a little bit to get everybody all locked in and everything. So for anybody who's out there who's on this, we'll start at about 4:30 or so. We tend to try to be right on time and get this flight in the air when it's supposed to take off. So I got another minute or so, and then we will get going.
Okay.
These Zoom meetings made me realize I need anti-glare reading glasses. Notice that?
Wow.
Yeah, they just let anybody talk. Mute yourself there, dude.
Hi.
I'm muting him. Haha.
Oh gosh.
If you've ever watched Around the Horn on ESPN, you got the guy you can mute everybody.
There you go. Okay. So it's funny out here in sunny California, I actually have to sit in my office with all my blinds shut to be able to get the screen to look right. Otherwise, there's so much glare. So I can relate.
I'm going to pull up that chat and then we'll get going.
Okay.
Yes, Skylar. So we make the recording available, and also when we go through this, we will let you know that we do it on the we share it not only on our website, but we share it on our YouTube channel as well. All right, so we're about 4:30 now, so I'm going to get us started, and we'll just pick up from there. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. This is another Thirsty for Knowledge Thursdays. It's brought to you, it's a weekly webinar series that we do, brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. I just want to make sure that everybody has boarded the right flight for this evening. You can't see the focus on charitable gifting, but this is the focus on charitable gifting. We are going to be we've got a couple of special guests with us. I'll introduce them in a couple of slides. But we are going to be talking about charitable gifting from both the organization point of view and also from individuals and what you can do and what's gone on here as far as dealing with everything. Oh, there it is. See, look at that. I didn't even know the fun was going to happen with that one. See, I should pay attention to some of this stuff. All right, a little pre-flight checklist for you now. So just all the microphones should be muted. The cameras can be on. We don't care one way or the other with that because everybody should be on the screen. However, there is a chat box. So if you do have a question, we do ask that you use the chat box. And my co-pilot and navigator, Craig, who I'll introduce in a second, is going to be monitoring. He'll make sure that if any questions do come up, we will have time at the end to do some Q&A as well. But, sometimes we know it's easier just to ask the question and then Craig will pick it up at somewhere along the line. He also is there to make sure that I keep this flight flying and we land in time and try to be on time with everything. So your pilots for this evening's flight, I am Tom Alessi. I am the president of the Aries Foundation for Financial Services. I have been in financial education, I've been in financial services for, it's now 21 years. I am an investment advisor, so I have to act as a fiduciary when I deal with anybody in terms of talking to them or giving guidance on their money. My co-pilot, Craig, I'm going to bring you in. Want to introduce yourself? Let the folks know who you are.
Sure. So as it says, I'm Craig Richardson. I'm the vice president of Aries Foundation. I've been doing financial planning and services for the last 16 years. And I specialize in working with families and small businesses to help them do comprehensive planning so they can reach their financial goals and have a better relationship with their money.
Thank you, sir. And for this evening, he is our co-pilot, which means he's going to keep us on track and on time, hopefully. And like I said, if you got any questions, throw them in the chat box and Craig will be able to help you out from there. As we said, this is brought to you by the Aries Foundation for Financial Education. You can visit us at ariesfoundation.org. Check us out, see what we do. I mean, our mission is trying to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. We do that in the way that we believe financial wellness is a contact sport. And we mean that literally. We mean that, you know, there's thousands of tools out there and software and calculators to help people try to figure out how to deal with their money. And the problem is there's no guidance and engagement. And if that doesn't happen, all of the tools and software and everything else just don't connect with people. That's what Craig and I try to do with the Aries Foundation. A couple of disclosures before I get started here. So these presentations are meant to be purely educational. So as somebody who's on the call already asked about having us send the replay because they're having some tech issues, we're happy to do it. We share with everybody. We share the presentations. They're on our website if you visit ariesfoundation.org. We also share them on our YouTube channel, so you can see them there. We just ask that if you're going to use them or going to share them, that you do it in a purely educational format. That's what this is intended for. The Aries Foundation is a nonprofit. We're not affiliated with any broker-dealer or any securities-related business. We're not a registered investment advisor. Craig and I strongly recommend to anybody, if you ever have any questions, whether they're legal, financial, or tax questions, that you seek out the help of a professional. And I'm so glad I got through all of that, because that gets me to the next part, which is my fun part on this. See, there are drinks on this flight. For us, we call it Thirsty for Knowledge Thursdays. We like to have a little fun, though. We want you to be relaxed. We want you to have you be enjoyable. And we can't think of a better way to do that than to have a cold beverage while you're listening to this. For me this evening, I am going to be drinking one of my nice places in the planet from Treehouse Brewery out in Charlton, Mass, their Bear Brown Ale. It's a traditional English style with a little bit of an American twist. Goes down very malty, very hoppy. Craig, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking one of my favorites, which is a Blue Moon,
Blue Moon.
Belgian White.
Yes, I had a Belgian White from Fat Tire yesterday.
So just like most flights, both your pilots will be drinking.
Skål.
Oh,
So here's our agenda for this evening. I'm going to bring our guests on one at a time to do a little bit of info from them.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about, sort of pick their brains, ask them some questions, and go through charitable outreach. What was it like prior to 2020 or, pre-COVID years? What is it like now, and sort of what the twist has played with that? Some of the guidance for giving during coronavirus, key areas that could be supported or that have received support. Craig and I will talk a little bit on tax efficient gifting and some of the things that have gotten in place that end come the end of the year because of the CARES Act. And then different ways that you can actually give now. This is sort of turning to the individuals, how you can give. So the first person I want to bring on and sort of introduce herself is Rita. So Rita, if you can, and just as you want me to scroll through, just let me know. But if you want to just give a little bit about you, your background, and your organization.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the warm welcome, Tom and Craig. And so pleased to be here with Paul Bergman and also Amego, one of my favorite all-time clients. So Amego is a great example of the work that I do. I work with philanthropic organizations, nonprofits that are ready to increase and diversify their revenue streams. And that's what we've been doing with Amego. Oftentimes I refer to organizations going from organic to planned growth, although I will tell you that Amego, in terms of its program, has a very planned growth. Most often, right, Paul?
Yes.
And then, but as far as income streams, I think it's going from organic to planned growth, especially when it comes to contributions and also getting involved with fee for services and business ventures has been some of the work that we've been doing, as well as board development and a lot of messaging to make sure that we're really clear about the wonderful work that Amego does. If you don't mind, next slide, Tom.
I'm happy to play Vanna White for you.
Okay. This is, before I left Boston, one of the places I did some teaching was Wheelock College, and they had a master's in nonprofit management, and I taught entrepreneurship for nonprofits. This has always, though, been one of my favorite books, Harold Seymour, Designs for Fundraising, and it goes back to 1966. It was republished in 1988. But as I tell people, everything that he speaks about is still good fundraising. The tools have changed. So there is no mention of social media, you will note, in 1966. But he begins with every cause that I hope to show needs people more than money. For when people are with you and are giving your cause their attention, interest, confidence, advocacy, and service, financial support should just about take care of itself. And he's right. Because without them in the right quality, quantity, in the right places, the right states of mind and spirit, you might as well go get lost. But we'll continue to revisit this because I'm a big advocate of getting the right team to the table. And I think that's been one of the keys with Amego, both internally and externally, is having really good team members within the management and also amongst the volunteers that it has attracted. So it's next slide, Tom. Oops. So, this just gives a little bit more detail as far as how I work with organizations. I'll let everyone read for a second, but it's obviously when you talk about increasing and diversifying revenue streams, like I said, it's a symptom, and we get involved with a lot of board development, organizational development, leadership development, team development to make sure that we have the right people at the table. And I'm going to keep stressing the importance of volunteers as we go forward. And the next photograph is a couple of groups, Zonta International, and then of course Amego. I've used the one with the duck. I don't know how much Betsy likes this one, but because to me, it just reminded us through everything happening this year that sometimes the best thing you can do is just keep the promise of a mother who said that she was going to bake a duck cake for her son for his birthday. And here's one of the house team members producing what he can best figure out is a duck cake. I mean, he's got all this other protocol and other things that he has to do to take care of everyone and meet with the nurses. And you know, some of the people were staying in the houses 24/7, and yet he makes time to come good on a mother's promise to make a duck cake for a birthday. I love it.
So what is that? Is it if it bakes like a duck, then it's...
I guess so. Hey,
I knew it was a duck. I didn't know it was a cake. See, now that you told me that, now I know it's a cake.
Well, we know it's edible. So, I mean, can you imagine? I you know, that's well beyond my capabilities. I can tell you that.
All right, I'm going to bring you over to, I just pulled a smattering there, just so the audience knows there's, Rita works with you know, pages of clients as far as what's there. So I just wanted to give just sort of a general overview of the different types of organizations that you work with.
Thank you. And the other group that was there was Zonta International. It's a group of women. All the cultivation and solicitation is being conducted by volunteers in 66 countries for their endowment campaign. So again, when I'm talking about the need for having the right people at the table, Zonta, and that picture had people from Wisconsin, Philippines, Australia, Germany, Texas. So it's a great representation of the way that they work together. Along that lines, and you luckily you listed them here, the group in Ohio, one of my all-time great volunteers next to Paul was a gentleman by the name of George, who once told me in a group of young volunteers why he loved to ask people to give. He said that when he asks for a gift, the organization wins because it can serve more people. The people we're serving win because we can provide better services. Most importantly, the people I ask for a gift win because they have an opportunity to participate in their community. And again, you know, it's one of the things that all of our organizations does so well is that we build community. And I think right now it's a very needed tool and something that I'd like to stress as we have our more of our discussion.
Terrific.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
I'm going
you.
to bring our other guest in. Thank you, Rita, and we'll certainly be hearing from you as we go along. So our other guest, Paul, I'm not going to steal your thunder here. Just you know, like the same thing, just a little bit about you, you know, you serve as the president, obviously, of the board at Amego. And then as you want to go through the slides, just tell me and I'll scroll through for you.
I will. Thank you, Tom and Craig, very much, and Rita, of course, for coming on. So I'm Paul Bergman. I'm the president of the board of directors of Amego. Prior to that, I was, and I still am, consulting privately in the energy business. And that's been going on for about 7 years. My connection with Amego started about 26 years ago. I have my oldest boy is in their residential program. And I've been on the board, I guess now for 6 years, and I took over as president of the board about 2.5 years ago. And next slide, please. Yeah, so I've got a few slides here about Amego. Some of you may be familiar with Amego, some of you may not, but just a couple of quick slides. And our website, amegoinc.org, is loaded with information and job opportunities. But Amego is a nonprofit, of course, based here in Massachusetts, 501c3 organization. And our mission statement, as you can see, we are committed to supporting people living with autism and on the spectrum and other developmental disabilities right across the road in families, communities, and everything else. Next slide, please, Tom. Yeah, so Amego, as you can tell by this slide, started with a foundation, the Sangre Stokes family in '71. What the takeaway here is we are turning 50 years old next year. So we've been around a long time. Yeah. And we started small, but we have been growing, and we have taken on the most difficult clients. We provide educational opportunities, the premises that everybody can learn, everybody can advance, and we work on those relationships with families and community. Next slide, please, Tom. A little bit on the demographics. We serve 507 children and adults, either with autism or on the spectrum. This tells you we've got about 176 adults in 40 group homes. That's where we are today. We are in the process of growing that through new construction as well as acquisitions. We have a day hab program headquartered in Attleboro and in Northborough, where we serve 143 adults. In our community-based day supports programs, sees 62 adults as well. And 15 of those adults are not connected in our residential program. They come on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Continuing the demographics, we do have a school program only. We opened up our Franklin program last year, and we serve children there. We also have children's residential program where 24 children, we define children as under age 22. In our best clinical network, which is our outreach service, sees as many as 250 children between 18 months and 18 years old. And we have a rolling intake that we use, and we have a diagnostic center. And right now we're at 630 active employees, looking to get a lot more. So please visit our Amego website if you or know somebody that has an interest. We are looking for at least 25 to 35 people right now.
Nice.
Next slide, please. These are our locations. Our headquarters is in Attleboro. Our main children's program and adult program in Northborough, and we opened up Franklin, as I said, a year or two ago. And our best outreach program is headquartered in Norton. I did want to show this slide because I did want to indicate that we are, in fact, have expanded into Florida. That was about 2 years ago, mainly for our best clinical services for the youngest clients as an outreach. So we are growing, and not just in people, but also geographically. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, no, Craig was really excited because he thought originally it was Florida, Mass, where he's originally from.
There is a Florida, Mass. I've been there.
Oh, that's right.
No, that's where he's from. Craig is from Florida. He was born in Florida, Massachusetts. That's why he thought he was so excited about that. Hey, something came to Florida. No, it's in Melbourne.
When I drove through, yes.
Yeah. Everybody just drives through, believe me.
You blink and you would have missed it.
Yes. All right. So I just want to say, and again, thank you both for coming on and being with us here today. Obviously, we gave them a little bit of time because of the extensive experience and knowledge that both of them have. And so I want to start in with this and really start about, charitable outreach. And I'm going to start with you, Rita, and sort of, this just talks about the 2019 numbers.
Right.
But,
Correct.
What were some of the top ways that organizations were doing outreach in 2019, last year, say?
One of the things you mentioned when you were talking as far as the financial arena is tools. And I would say that, again, with all of us, our tools have changed over the years. And I think sometimes we get so enamored with the tools that we forget about that it's still the basics. And the messaging and the people and the board development and all these other pieces that are so important to driving our organizations forward. So in 2019, I would tell you that for most organizations, they often get started with seeking out money from foundations and working on events. That traditionally is where most organizations will enter the fundraising arena. It's simple. Let's face facts. You have a list of foundations. You can access it in multiple ways. And you know that they have one thing in the world to do. They give money. That's it. And they give it to charitable organizations. And then events, I think many people find it easier to have an event and ask people to buy a ticket than they do to actually ask for a gift. And so those are traditionally the ways that a lot of groups get involved. As we've seen in recent years, in 2019, I'd say is also indicative of that, is that our social media has increased in terms of a role. But even with that, we have to understand that its role is getting our message out. Its role is getting our organization known. There still takes a lot of people behind the scenes to bring people to the table and to bring them to the next level of interest and wanting to know more about the work that we do to actually making a gift. So that's what I would tell you is I think the biggest piece of it is the tools that we're using is the
Right,
shift
and
always,
appreciate
with
that.
each successive year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, this just talks a little bit about, where that generosity comes from. And Paul, sort of
Right.
turning to you, sort of looking at, and again, not this year, years prior for just Amego for more of a focus or focal point is, was that outreach really, was it driven towards, as Rita was saying, towards other foundations or towards individuals? Where do you think most of the funding that was coming to Amego was coming from?
Yeah, I think I would add to that list special events because, when we didn't have to wear masks, of course, pre-COVID, we were able to go out and do some of these things. And we would have a 5K race that raised money.
Right.
We would have an annual golf tournament that raised money. And obviously, and we do have an executive vice president of development, Betsy Roach, who may be on this call. And Betsy is there and she's running the applications to foundations. We have a lot of individual donors and we do a lot of networking. We go to events. Tom, I think that's where we met. And
Absolutely.
it was pre-COVID, go to events, spread the word and try to connect with people. Plus we've grown our board of directors. We did have some retirements. We added some more folks to the board and they have been those folks that have come in have been very helpful as well in terms of fund development.
Well, so let me follow up on that, Rita, with you, because I know you do a lot in terms of helping with oversight, the boards and that type of thing. Is that one of those, I call it a criteria, but one of those things that when an outreach is, are you going to be active to help support or grow or garner donations to the organizations for somebody who may want to join a board?
I'm trying to understand the question. Yes. I think let's start this way. As far as the board of trustees for every organization, one, as you know, because you know the tax and some of the legal implications of all this, is that they have the fiduciary responsibility for the organization. So when you look at it from the outside, when anyone who wants to contribute to an organization, and that's a foundation, it's often businesses and definitely individuals, we look to say, okay, the board knows more about the finances than anyone else, basically at that CEO level. And they have the fiduciary responsibility for the organization. So we expect them to also be making gifts themselves. And we look for that when we see, who's listed on the leadership of giving to an organization. We look to their leadership to, tell us that, look, we're running a really wonderful organization and I trust it so much, I'm placing my own money in here.
Right.
So and foundations look anymore. You'll have foundations that one of the criteria is that does 100% of the board give. There's most probably not a dollar amount as far as, a level, but at least that every member of the board has given something. And more, obviously, as organizations are growing, that's one of the criteria is that how are you working on the financial aspect of the organization? Are you making gifts? Are you helping bring gifts to the table? Are you working on collaborations with businesses or other organizations? There's a host of ways that we can impact the finances of our organizations. Paul had some good examples from Amego's board through all of this, that a few people had ways to help them save money through all of the work that's gone on this year. Well, that's obviously very helpful to any organization on financing. As you look at this, I'm keep coming back to, remember this study in 2004, it was 50 years old. So now we're, 15 years later with 2019's figures. They'll announce the 2020 figures probably in June of 2021. But the biggest growth here that you'll see is foundations that used to be closer to around 10%. Businesses have hovered even from the 2004, that was more like 4.8%. Well, it's 5%.
Yeah.
So as you can tell, individuals and families is typically, if you add that with bequests, hovered around 83%. It's a little less than that if you look at these figures now. Some of that is because more people are setting up foundations. And so how much of that foundations is still family foundations and individual giving, or donor advised funds that are hosted someplace, right?
Right. So do donor advised funds, do they fall under foundation in that situation, or do they fall under individual?
Interesting enough, well, a lot of it would fall under foundations because if I have most often like a donor advised fund, you'd have it set up at the Boston Foundation, i.e. so you've given the gift to the Boston Foundation. Even if you give it to Fidelity, well, Fidelity set up a separate foundation to accept that money because the corporation cannot accept it.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So you're right. So again, there's some of the hidden individual and giving, but I would tell you that when you're looking to market, it's individuals and families who will drive it because they're going to decide whether they give through their donor advised fund, through their personal checkbook, through their business.
Yeah.
That's just the tool.
Right.
But
Okay.
they still need to be convinced of your mission.
And Rita, looking at this chart too, like it shows different ones that are up in 2018. Is two quick questions on that. One is giving determined based on what's trending? Like you look at a COVID environment right now with health be something, and human services be something maybe having a bigger bump. And two, when one gets a rise, do you see other ones fall? In other words, is it like a finite, like the same amount of money going out every year, operated a different way?
Well, luckily the amount of money has kept increasing over the years. And so we've had a healthy, robust growth in our philanthropic dollars. So that's the good news. But you are correct that oftentimes as you see one arena growing, in terms of receiving gifts, and something else is going to, receive less percentage. Real dollars, you'd still have to look at the dollars, but in a percentage of the pie here, you'd have to take a look at that. Like religion, let's try that. When this thing got started, 50% of the dollars went to religion. In 2004, 35%, and now it's 29% of the dollars are to religion, to give you some help. Education has hung in strong over the years, around 14%. I went back to look at human services, near and dear to Amego, and if you average it out, I would say it's probably hung around 12%. There are some years where it's 14, a few years where it's down to maybe 8. But you will find that in times like this, that some people do understand, and especially businesses, I think, understand the need for food banks and all kinds of other things. And so human services will often be one of the first things that they increase in their giving. But then that's right. Then does that mean that they're giving less to the arts? Or
Right,
some
and
other
actually
area,
it's
money
funny,
has
sorry-
to come from that area.
Sorry, Rita, I didn't mean to stop you, but
Yeah.
it slides right into the next part of this, which is giving now, because one of the things,
Right.
and that's come from this, is that the numbers are up.
Right.
Like you said, it's been increasing, and the 2020
Right.
contribution numbers are up
Right.
from 2019. It's just, as Craig alluded to in the question, it's very specific, right? There are COVID related, mainly those causes getting funded and not the wide swath of everything, because you've got a lot of nonprofits out there who are hurting for,
Right.
you know,
For dollars.
yes,
And-
for operating
and yards.
expenses and everything else.
I mean, I've been
Tom,
doing,
I mean,
I would mention just with regard to the virtual fundraising event, thanks to Betsy's efforts, Amigo was fortunate enough to partner and be invited in on the Flutie Foundation event.
Okay, yep.
So this year, of course, it was a virtual event where you could kind of watch the run from Massachusetts down to Florida. And so we participated in that. Every dollar that was contributed to the Flutie Foundation in the name of Amego came back to Amego. I think we ended up being the largest donor and the largest receiver as a result of that. But it was a great way to, in the world of the COVID era, to be able to create a virtual event, participate in it.
And let's face it, right now, just ponying up on that, Paul, that, virtual is the new normal.
Yeah.
Right. My question is, and based on what your experience was with that particular event, obviously that was effective. I just don't know, Rita, if you have found across the board that these virtual events have been overall effective. I know you mentioned that events was, prior to this year was the number one or number two way of generating funds. But has that transitioned into the virtual world?
Not consistently.
Right,
I
that's
mean,
what I thought.
right. I think you'll find that Amego was smart. They partnered with someone who had a wider marketplace than they do. And so they reached out to more people. Plus, Amego's staff and parents, and they're really competitive. So they get into that. I mean, so it's good. It's good for them because it's a great spirit and team building that they needed at that point in time. And they had, but again, remember, well, what do we keep talking about? Who's at the table and what's appealing to them. And I think that's what people have to understand with their events. Some of the groups that already have been doing big events, have marketplaces, have a consistent following. Well, okay, help us shift this in this year, and let's figure out ways to still have some fun, but yet you understand that we're still doing this kind of work, and these are the kinds of contributions that will drive the mission and vision that you have been so supportive of, and that you want to continue to see flourish. So, but you're just trying to create it from scratch. I think it's more difficult right now.
Right, and that's one of the things. Sorry, Craig, go ahead.
I think people do want to contribute, and we're trying to do it in a safe way. I mean, I noticed, and I thought it would be an issue, that Tom and I did about half a dozen golf tournaments this year. And they're all done in a safe way. But, they had extra carts,
Right.
didn't have to be in it.
Right.
But it was amazing because all these organizations were actually filling their rosters.
Right.
So people were coming out and supporting these organizations, and they were doing silent auctions, and some
Right.
auctions were online.
Yeah, I wonder, Rita, with and Paul, maybe you can. I don't know if you did any other virtual events at Amego, but one of my concerns, or I guess questions, and I serve on a couple of different committees, as far as golf is concerned, and one of the things was the struggle was with that corporate
Right.
sponsorship.
I was going to say that to me is the hardest one, the sponsorships. And I've spoken to some of those people, and their concern is even though it's a gift, to some extent, when businesses do that, they're looking for getting some certain amount of attention, right?
Right.
Let's face facts. So their concern is that when you shorten some of the things, even when you did it live like that, or you do it virtual, are they getting the same kind of recognition? Are people really seeing them do they have the same kind of ability to contact and network online that they would have, in the big hall, right?
Yeah,
Paul, did you run into any of that?
we did. We postponed our golf tournament that was originally planned for June of this year.
Yeah. I know, we were going to try to play. I know you canceled it on us.
Well, the reality is, we had the same thing shaping up that we have had in years past, where we literally filled the golf tournament with 144 players. But to us, to Amigo, it's more than just the golf. It's the socialization event, the live auction, the opportunity for folks that are there to meet our senior staff. And so that this year we had to, we thought that we got to cancel it because you just can't do, we couldn't do that with the social distancing and the masks and everything else. We have decided to plan it for June of next year. We're hoping certainly by June or before June, we'll be able to pull off both the golf tournament and the networking event. In addition, we've already pushed our 50th anniversary event, our gala event, which is a major event for us. And the first time we've done one of these, we moved it from 2021, which is our 50th anniversary, to 2022 for the reasons that you and Craig just cited. It's, not being able to, corporate sponsors and things like that, just not having that face-to-face connection. So
yeah, but now it doesn't count because you're 51, so it doesn't matter now.
It'll be all right. Yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
Right. So I want to slide over and talk about this whole what I call guidance for giving during coronavirus. And Craig and I did a presentation early, I think it was back over the summer in August, where we were talking about preventing identity theft. Right. And one of the things with that is not getting taken advantage of when it comes to fraud and to some of the other stuff that goes on. And clearly, any pandemic or any type of thing like that lends itself to fraud. So I guess one of the first questions, Rita, for you is how does somebody know that the organization they're giving to is legitimate?
I mean, over the years, people give obviously to get something done. Most often, they believe in the mission of an organization. They believe the gift can make a difference. It's the best way for them to drive societal change. I try and tell people to usually, go with what you know. So people who have been involved with Amego, that's been a great story right now because it's actually turned loose more individual and family giving. Because we've been really clear the last couple of years that we've been raising money to make the best and brightest staff possible to take care of your loved ones. And now, one of the few agencies that can say, look, it's all of our regular staff. We're not bringing in temps. These are people, they're here. They're taking care of David, and and they're as careful as they've always been, and even more careful with all everything that we're dealing with. And so people, it was a great story because we can say, this is what we've been telling you we've been raising money for here, right when you need it, here we are. So as far as but I understand that sometimes you see something for COVID-19 or whatever, and you're trying to think, is this something real or what do I do? A couple things. One is look to some of your community foundations. In the Boston area, the Boston Foundation has put out a lot of information. Go to its website, you'll see a lot of the COVID resources. You'll see organizations that are coming to table on special initiatives for COVID. And so you can see the ones that they have vetted, that they have looked at, and they have a staff of program people that this is what they do, that they make sure that these are groups that are, abiding by all the rules and doing good work. So that's one area. A lot of your people probably know GuideStar. I use it probably every week. Yeah. And so GuideStar is always a good resource just to see how are they listed? Is the listing complete?
GuideStar.org, right?
Right. GuideStar.org. And that's all one word, GuideStar. And you will find anyone that is valid with the Internal Revenue Service and receiving contributions. You can do that. At one time, I'd say.
So just to stop you there for that, just so I can, and so the audience knows in
ahead.
terms of dealing with that, because I want to make sure on this that. So if you've got, get solicited by somebody or somebody reaches out, what you're saying is you can go to this guidestar.org, type in and see whether or not this is actually an operating 501c3.
Correct. That is correct. That's right. And, for all the years that I've had in the business, one, I never respond to a phone call. I mean, unless it's somebody I know. If Paul called me, that's one story. But if it's, an unsolicited call, I'm not getting my money over the phone. Anything on the street.
You're not taking the call from the Nigerian prince who's going to give you $1 million?
No. And anything on the street, again, the same thing. So take your time and check out organizations. And
appreciate that. Right. Absolutely. Very good
advice. Go to their websites.
Paul, I want to ask you, so from the organization standpoint, right, is there a better time for somebody to be giving, or is it, hey, look, we're 12 months a year, 24/7, we're always looking, is there one time that's better than another?
I think generally speaking, nothing special about one time or the other. Amego does have at certain periods of time. For example, right now, donations that are made are going directly to our direct care staff that are working all sorts of hours and giving of themselves in this
Right.
difficult situation. But typically, and the thing I like about the Amego website, and if somebody goes on that website and wants to check us out from the giving perspective, there is a very, very detailed description of various ways that they can do that. And it includes company matches, it includes bequests and all those types of things. Very educational, so folks can get right to it and do that. And that's why I encourage people to do. I used to hand out a little brochure. Now I encourage people to go on the website and make their contribution right there. And
I think that's very funny, because I think that first time that we met, you handed me the brochure.
I did. Right. I used to carry them around, right? And it does, it gives somebody an immediate response. So they get they immediately get an email acknowledging and so forth and so on. So yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's great. And so I want to slide right on that, which sort of talks about, and we've sort of alluded to this a little bit through the conversation here about key areas to support. But I think from somebody who's looking, and like you said, Rita, you're getting inundated, you get bombarded with calls and requests and things and this and that. And like you said, hey, food banks are up, and everybody knows there's a need. I guess it's a little overwhelming. And how do you figure out this is where I should donate, or this makes sense, right? How do you sort of weed through all that?
I mean, one, to your earlier question too, is I always tell people, the best time to give is now. Okay. As far as people, the only thing that would change that is if you're in a category that you're working with your financial advisor, and there's tax implications that would make it better at a different time of the year. That's fine. Go with that. But people give out of their heart. Follow your heart. Make sure your head and your heart are working together, and that, go with places, even like right now, some people would say, well, why would you give to the arts? Well, the arts are important to all of us, and the arts provide us a different way of community building. And so if you're wondering, should I give to a food bank or to that? Well, hopefully maybe you can do both, but and especially in this year. But if your heart has always been with those arts organizations, and that's where you've made your gift, and they are in a position where, one of the things that's difficult right now is that there will be mergers and acquisitions. There will be collaborations, stronger collaborations going on among our nonprofit arena. And so you also want to make sure that the organization you're giving to is healthy and is ready to accept that gift and make good use of it. That you're not barely keeping it alive.
You're 10 after, just to let you know, just to keep us on.
Okay, thank you.
and I'm trying to steal your identity virtually.
Okay, I appreciate that. You've done it before, it's okay. All right, so now I appreciate that. We're gonna slide right in, because you mentioned it a little bit there about the the tax efficient part of this, and in terms of it. So this just talks that there were specific situations and specific things put in place earlier this year as part of the CARES Act. Now, Craig and I did a whole thing on the CARES Act. We've actually done a couple of them in terms of how it impacts and PUA and everything else that goes on it. And we're probably going to do one come February on hey, look, you got all this money, now you got to pay taxes. But this is what's in place that's been changed from everything else, right? So there are parts to the CARES Act that both individuals and corporations can take advantage of in 2020. So that window's closing, right? It's you've got a finite number of days left in the year. So as Rita and both Paul had said, there's no time like the present to do something. So if you haven't gifted, or you've been thinking about it, or wanting to line something up, from Craig and I's standpoint, to be able to get away with being able to put more in or take more of a tax advantage is always a reason to do something. If I can better somebody else and I'm getting a break on it, or I can up what I'm putting away, that's the way to go.
Right.
And some of those strategies really, when you start peeling them back, and this is what Rita was talking about, when you're looking at it from that tax consequence point of view, whether it's harvesting some gains, the market's obviously been going up. So harvesting some capital gains that you're able to take advantage of and being able to put in, that type of thing. Absolutely. Because the market's not going to continue to go up forever. It's not that we're going to go into that. That's another presentation we did earlier about where this was headed. But it's just some ideas and thoughts here that now might be a good time to be looking at taking advantage. And if you were thinking about, especially we're heading into the holidays, it always feels good to give. And as Rita said, now is always a good time. We just had Giving Tuesday was on the 1st.
Right.
That was 2 days ago. So if you didn't give on Giving Tuesday, think about maybe trying to set something up or do something. And if you want to reach out to an accountant to say, hey, look, what can I get away with? What can be a benefit to me? There's a way to do that.
Well, I think the other thing, Tom, too, is a lot of people think that when you're giving up something. They don't realize that in giving, especially with a lot of the tax efficient strategies that are out there, it can be a real win-win both for the organizations and for the person giving the gift, not just for intrinsically, but also extrinsically as well. So it's just a matter of understanding how and we've done these presentations in the past all about how to give to charitable organizations in a meaningful way. People just don't realize they want to; they just don't know the tactics to do it.
Correct, and that they're actually getting something for doing it. Absolutely, very good point. In terms
Yeah,
of
I think it's a great point, and especially for
let me jump back. Go ahead, Paul.
I mean, especially for folks that are, let's say 72 and a half or 73 and older, they have to take a required minimum distribution. If that distribution goes directly to a charity, as you guys know, it doesn't hit them as just in their income. So it's, and that sometimes comes up late in the year.
Or even
and the CARES Act, one of the flip sides to that, which has caused, some of this downturn with stuff, is that the CARES Act waived all RMDs for 2020.
That's right. Yeah.
But what that's going to do next year is you're going to get a bigger, it's going to be a bigger bite, right? So there's going to be more involved with that. So next year, that conversation is going to be a little different because suddenly, and for everybody who got pushed off to 72 because of the Secure Act, is again, some of these numbers, it's going to be definitely a benefit to be able to put that money towards a charitable cause instead of taking the tax hit.
Yep.
Right.
All right. So I just wanted to go in real quick with, ways to give now. I mean, I know, Rita, cash is king, right? Like we talked about, that cash is always king. But if we were playing Family Feud, right? And we were looking up at the survey board and we said, survey says the number 2 or number 3 way that somebody can give that's other than cash, what would you give them?
I'm with Paul that I think IRAs are underrated. That I think there's certain people, and if you looked at that Zonta group, they had enough members in that category that became a huge boon for them. Stock is my other answer always. I think I'm still amazed that I walk in doors of organizations that have never received a gift of stock.
Right. So that appreciate, and so this year especially, it's a big benefit that you can gift the appreciated asset. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if that describes your organization, make sure that you work with someone to have an account so that you can receive a gift of stock. And there's easy ways that it can be done. You could have that all done by the close of business tomorrow, right? Right, Tom?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, at least 2 days on the trade, but that's besides the point. You can certainly get it over there. Yes.
Yeah. But they can have an account ready and ready to accept stock, right? Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. In terms of going through that.
Assets too. What about property? Can somebody gift property, and is that equitable?
Yes.
Yes.
That's on Amego's list. Property, land, automobiles, vacation homes. I mean, frankly, anything, collectibles, anything like that can be monetized by the receiving charity. Absolutely.
And so hold on, Rita, just to bring you back to, we had a brief discussion about donor advised funds and a little tickler on that. But one of the downturn or downside to a donor advised fund is it can only take cash. it can't take an appreciated asset, which is what Paul was talking about, being able to use an appreciated asset and gift it, right? A
Right.
donor advised fund can only accept cash when it makes that if you want to make a contribution to it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So another benefit for giving it directly to the charity.
Giving it directly to the charity instead of going through that donor advised vehicle or instrument. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this has been great. Craig, I know we're a little bit, you know,
We are 518 right now. Yeah.
yeah, no, he tried to keep us on track, and we are a little bit on track. So I'm gonna swing through the end of this here. So just for everybody who's been on the call today, we do send out evaluation forms. These are just to, you know, get some feedback from us, give us a little bit of input, let us know that we kept you on time and kept you on the flight and everything was good in terms of dealing with that. We just like to make sure we stay on point. You know, this is Craig and I when we're having a little bit more fun. You'll see us out and about. We talked about all those events, right, that happen, and golf and all those things. You know, we're usually out in our custom jerseys. Those are the Patriots, the number 12 jerseys. I'm not getting a Tampa Bay number 12, so I got to figure out, are we going to get a number 1 or some other jersey number for what we're going to be using as we go forward here when the events all come back. You know, we do financial planning and we make that available to everybody. I do want to say what's on tap. We keep the think with a drink going in terms of the metaphor here. So next week, next Thursday, we're doing estate planning, but it's really a focus on beneficiaries. We've got an estate planning attorney coming in, and we're going to be talking about those assets that pass by beneficiary and those that don't, and why that's important. And then how to make sure that you're doing a review, and we'll spend a little time why this is important for a family and near and dear to Paul and to Amego and everybody there, why it's important for a family with a child who has special needs to pay attention to those beneficiary designations and to make sure you're doing reviews. On the 17th, we're just going to do resolution planning. Hey, it's that time of the year. Everybody wants to do them. Everybody does them. I'm sure the pandemic threw all of yours into turmoil and chaos in terms of trying to make it happen. So we'll spend a little time trying to help you plan, set those goals, and actually stick to it so that you can have a great 2021. And then we're off for the holidays and we'll come back. We got a whole lineup that we're planning as we head into the new year. Co-pilot, what do we got for questions out there?
We have no questions. Once again, we did such a great job that we've answered everybody's questions.
Okay.
So there's nothing in the chat box? I thought I saw stuff in the chat box.
We have lots of stuff in the chat box, and none of them are questions.
Oh, no questions.
We
Okay.
got a compliment. We've got Betsy wanting to forget all about 2020.
So my running mantra to everybody, and you can steal this, please feel free to take it. I blame everything on Corona.
Yes.
Sometimes the virus, sometimes the beer. If I have a problem or anything ever happens, that's what I do. I blame it on Corona. All right. So if you ever have any questions for Rita, you can reach out to Rita. She is
raising her hand, buddy. She's got a question.
Yes. So two things before you sign off.
Oh, yeah,
Tom.
go ahead.
So one piece of advice that actually Peter Lowy thought it was important enough that he published it in the Massachusetts Nonprofit News, and that is 125. Every organization probably has 125 people who are either lead contributors or get you to foundations, businesses, are just your key connectors. You should be having a face-to-face, i.e. probably Zoom meeting with them every year. And this year, you should have had it as well. They're compassionate, they're empathetic, they're asking how people are doing. Obviously, if it leads to fundraising, great. But you have 125 people that, yes, the social media and the emails are signs of life and let people know what you're doing and how things are going to a certain extent. But if they really have that kind of ability to connect you to other worlds, then we should be having a face-to-face conversation with them. And that's what I recommend to every one of my groups. And I'm promoting that. Sometimes a little difficult maybe to reach out and do it, but I think we can all reach out to 125. And thank you for using my contact information and let people know that just like you, I have a lot of coffees with groups, or, come in for a board meeting and we'll answer a few questions, set aside a little bit of time at your board meeting. And I'm offering that to anyone listening here, Tom, any of your people, that I'll be happy to, as a courtesy to the Aries Foundation for including us today, provide that as a service to them. They're free coffee.
Terrific. We certainly
to-
appreciate that. Absolutely. And I think that's it's absolutely a spot on point with that reaching out to that core, right?
Right.
Those are the people that are going to drive everything that you
Right.
do and everything that you try to have happen, whether it's an event, whether it's fundraising, whatever it might be, that
Individual
core
gift.
is always going to be there. So that personal outreach, like you said, what does it take to set up a Zoom meeting and do
Right.
10, 15 minutes of a Zoom, just checking in and letting them know what's going on? I think that's brilliant. It's absolutely a tremendous. And then for Paul, I put you in, and Betsy's on the call, and I know you've mentioned her a couple of times, so we dropped her in there as well.
Right.
So certainly, if you have anything for Paul, you can, Paul graciously offered to put his information in there. So if you do have any questions for him, and as he mentioned, he obviously graciously dropped Betsy in there as well,
Right.
and said, go ahead and reach out to
Contact her.
Betsy, because, if you have questions there.
Yeah, so please don't hesitate to reach out. And once again, I just want to thank Tom and Craig, guys. What you do, not just for us and Amego and everybody else, it's just fantastic. You guys are terrific. I've had the pleasure of seeing you both in person. I've had the pleasure of purchasing one of those Patriot shirts, and I look forward to getting back to normal and being able to see you guys again.
Yeah, no, that would be great, and we certainly appreciate it. It's I can't say in terms of that it truly is. I'm thankful to both of you as far as coming on and supporting. But when we thought about doing this, you were the first two people that we thought of, and just based on who you are and expertise and knowledge and all of this, and our part in it is just trying to make the connections and get the word out, and hopefully, like you said, Paul, if somebody turns around and realizes that, hey, maybe this is something I can do or something I can help. And I know we put Amego in on the our special needs newsletter for all the hiring you guys are doing with the expansions and everything. So, hopefully something comes from that, because I think that's a great thing where you guys are doing so much to try to get workers and help people who might not be employed right now because of the pandemic and what's going on.
And Betsy summed it up. We're all wonderful. And because Todd, you're still on the call, you're wonderful too.
Thank you, Betsy. I appreciate that. All right. On that note, I am going to say thank you all for this evening. I'm going to close it out. So Craig, I got in under an hour. See, maybe we ran into a little headwind there with the flight, but I got us in under an hour. So that's my goal in terms of doing all of this.
That's
So I'm
great.
going to stop my share. I'm going to stop that recording.